Welcome to another Enigmas of the Ancient World video. I'm Luke, and today Yousef is joining me. We're going to take a look in the Osirion Temple at Abydos.
Yeah, hi Luke.
Welcome, how are you?
Yeah, I miss you, buddy.
Yeah, I miss you too, man. So tell us about this column right here. What was this column that we're looking at?
This column is an obvious case of recycling the granite stone from the ancient megalithic structure. And we
So
could
that would have
see
been
that,
one of the huge Assyrian blocks?
yes, probably one of the ceiling blocks that is missing.
Mm. You could get a lot of columns out of that, for sure.
Oh yeah, exactly. One block can create a set of columns.
What are these gouge marks that we see a lot on the stone here? They almost look like somebody's been cutting with an axe or something.
Now they say people used to take some of the stone for blessings when they went to pilgrimage, like take some powder of it. Seem like the famous scene of the enemies of the country. And famous example is the one in Komombo Temple, where they have all of them are hit, like those people
Right.
like do this as some kind of ritual when they visit the site.
So this is Seti First Temple, which is right above the Assyrian, and we're not going to spend a lot of time in it. But it's really cool, so I thought I'd leave this little walkthrough.
Yes, of course. So people know what can be achieved by the dynastic Egyptians is as good as what we are looking at right there. So this is pure dynastic carving and constructing as well. These beautiful columns are constructed from different pieces. They are not single solid pieces like the ones we are about to see in the Serapeum. And all, of course, the depictions on the walls and the symbolism, it's all dated to the New Kingdom time. Some of the best details exist in this temple. When we try to look at a detail of any of the scenes or what is the king is holding in his hand or anything like that, we usually like to look in the Seti First Temple because the details of the carving is amazing.
And these are the king's lists, as I remember, right? The pharaohs.
The king's list of Abydos, of course, is one of the most important and one of the most famous as well. It starts from the first dynasty until the 19th dynasty. And they, of course, dropped many of the kings, like many other kings' lists. And they believe that they are not royal or they were invaders in some other parts. The famous ones they drop, of course, is Akhenaten and Tutankhamun and Queen Hatshepsut. Most of the kings' list don't have them.
Right. Some beautiful hieroglyphs. So we got the high relief and then the
deeper carving inscriptions is the one that was added, of course, by Ramses II, the most famous inheritor, if I want to be polite about that. And it's a famous formula saying Samawi Minu in it. He renovated the site for his father. Min Ma'atra, of course, is the name of Seti First. Yeah, Usr Ma'atra Seti Ben Ra is the name of Ramses, and Min Ma'atra is the name of Seti First. So you see all this beautiful structure with huge blocks and everything that's still in the capability, without a doubt, of the dynastic Egyptians. So we don't want anybody to fall in this mistake and think the dynastic Egyptians were not capable. They were capable of everything. And the only mystery is, of course, what we know as the lost technology.
Now, I was told by an Egyptologist that Seti changed the shape of his temple because they discovered the Assyrian when they were building the temple. How do you feel about that?
Changed which temple? The Osirion?
Seti First Temple.
Yeah,
It
the
would have
temple
been a different
itself,
shape.
Ramses II is the one who changed it and closed some of the entrances. Because as you saw in the beginning, there are several entrances, and he closed all of them and only left one. Plus, of course, adding his inscriptions on top of the older inscriptions that is related to Men Ma'atra or Seti I, his father.
So do you think they knew about the Assyrian before they built the temple there?
Definitely. The Osirion is very ancient, and there
Yes.
are evidence there, statues from the Middle Kingdom, or has the inscriptions of the Middle Kingdom on it, like Senusert and others. And of course, we have not far away from it the area of Shonit Zibib from the Archaic Age, and we have Al Arab al Madfuna from also the earliest dynasties. The entire structure, I believe, was sealed, so it used to be like the inside of the king's chamber or the Valley Temple, closer to
Right.
the Valley Temple, also had a ceiling.
And it was symmetrical too. Like at this end, it doesn't have the roof. It's all in as we're looking at it there in front
Yeah,
of the tunnel. But that would have been an identical chamber to the one at the other end.
probably.
I
We
mean,
can,
it still has that portion of the A-frame roof on the one end of
yes,
it.
which is also very known to the pyramid structures.
I'm always blown away by the way those top blocks. There's like a groove cut in them with a
Mm.
piece that they either lowered it onto or like slid it on. Looks like.
Yeah, locked it in.
Yeah.
It's amazing design of this temple. And we can see that people used it as a quarry for a long time. And they failed in many cases of removing a piece. That's why they destroyed most of it, most of the ceiling of it. The Egyptologists have a conflict about this structure. And the conflict is some of them want to date it according to the writings.
The New Kingdom writings.
Yeah, the New Kingdom writings, there is part of it that has some inscriptions that was created during the region of Merem-Petah, the successor of Ramses II. And others are comparing the structure with the Valley Temple. And because, of course, they believe the Valley Temple is from the Old Kingdom era, then they relate or they believe the timeline of the Osirian is Old Kingdom because it matches the Valley Temple in Giza. Here we have a combination of quartzite and rose granite.
So amazing.
Two of the
Now,
most hard stones in the combination of the ancient structures.
how deep are? I remember them telling us, but how deep are some of these or most of these parts that are filled with water?
I believe some of them mentioned that they go deep to 9 meters. You mean the parts in the water, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of them
Yeah,
are
but
staircases, right?
yeah, exactly. So perhaps there is a lower level.
Do we have any idea? Has anybody tried to explore it with any kind of, I don't know, robot?
We only have the words from the inspectors that we heard there. Some of this water is not as deep, so not all that green water that you see goes to 9 meters,
Right.
because we can find some of the broken pieces of stones are in the water and they don't go this deep. But they say some spots do go for 9 meters or more.
Just can't help but wonder if it's connected to something.
Perhaps when it was constructed, the water levels were different.
So here's some of the writings.
Yes, and you can see the name of Merem Petah.
Right.
And he put there the famous inscriptions of the Book of the Dead. And this is where the conclusion that the Osirion is a symbolic tomb for the god Osiris came from. It's because they found these texts on the walls. Yeah.
So how heavy are these blocks, Yousef?
Well, I believe some of them goes over 50 tons, if not more, because we know 1 cubic meter of granite weighs around 2.8 tons. And some of these blocks houses 20 cubic meters.
Little flat blocks placed in to little spots. Sort of
Yeah.
Peruvian feeling.
Some of it are surface pieces, and they are considered to be patches just
Right.
for the surface of the stone, and
Right.
some of them are deep as part of the structure. We can see this interesting part over here, that some part of the wall is smooth
Right.
on the higher.
Yes.
Yeah. So was it unfinished, or was that it's how it looked like, and then the inheritors try to flatten the surfaces later? We cannot be sure. Look at the result of this after thousands of years.
It's amazing.
Like, if it wasn't for those who were recycling, I believe this structure was going to remain in a very, very good condition.
Yeah. Well, these are some of the flower of life designs.
Yeah.
Like a red ochre. Just tried to slow that down a little bit.
It's beautiful to look at, but reminds me with the subject of the submarine, and it can, this kind of things can be, in my opinion, something like more to misdirection. So
Yeah.
people would go to see the flower of life and the helicopter and miss the megalithic structure itself, the Osirian. They don't see how important it is to compare that ancient structures like that could be inherited, and the inscriptions could be added on, and other structures could be also added around it
Right.
or within it. But of course, in that case, the level of the structure was already much lower, and the dynastic Egyptians in the New Kingdom time built their structure on a higher level.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't. I imagine the water level must have been much lower. That's why there were so many.
I've seen a picture of the flower of life, and it was carved on a wooden cover of a plate from the dynastic Egyptian time,
Right.
perhaps the 18th dynasty, so around 1500 BC. So the design itself
Right.
is actually ancient Egyptian.
I was really excited to go in here, Yousef. I have to say.
The dark room, yes. Well, they now don't allow anybody to go down there except, of course, with a private permission like the one we had. And in my opinion, it's the Osirian. I know City First Temple is beautiful, but the true highlight of the site is the Osirian. So to forbid people from going there except for the one who has a private permission is really like disappointing, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Well, I went there in 2015 and had to stand up at the top, take a couple of photographs from the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it.
This is a very, really good footage right there to give us a sense of scale.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, one of these days I'm going to edit a mummy in somewhere.
We have the same frame A ceiling, which we find in many of the pyramids. The most famous one, of course, is the one of the Pyramid of Khafra, the middle pyramid in the Giza Plateau. And this might be also one of the powerful acoustic structures.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing seems entirely symmetrical to me.
Yeah.
All of the little chambers. So depending on what the understructure is, especially if this was closed in, you know, the whole thing was closed in.
Anybody can inherit that and add their inscriptions in a beautiful way, especially smart priests like the dynastic Egyptians in the New Kingdom time.
Yeah, it's tough with the flashlights and the camera to pick up the actual writings on the ceiling here. You can just about make out Newt at some point. But there's a lot of Book of the Gate stuff all over the ceilings here.
Yeah. The famous ceiling or scene of the goddess Nut swallowing the disk of the sun, and yeah, they are chapters from the so-called Book of the Dead. I don't remember seeing any video like this before.
No, I haven't seen any. I think I saw some older photographs. But,
Yeah.
And usually people are like thigh deep in that green water, which doesn't really appeal to me.
I believe the archaeologists did a great job lowering the levels of water in that temple.
Yeah, I'd be really fascinated to see how far down it goes.
Next time, bring shorts.
Right.
We can see that the bats left a very similar liquid to what we see inside the Red Pyramid.
Right.
So perhaps the liquid that is left on the Red Pyramid is also from the bats that took shelter in the inner chambers of these ancient structures.
Yeah, I always sort of wondered about the way it seemed to kind of drip, like in the inside of the Red Pyramid in the main chamber in there, like under the edges of the stone. But maybe
Under the edges of the stone, it will be normal because that's where the bats will stand.
right.
The odd ones that was confusing me for a while is the other straight lines that is in the middle of the wall. Because I don't believe the bats will just decide to hang on a straight line like that. Which after I've seen this, then the only thing I could think of is that the pyramid used to have other form of that corbelled design that was removed. Otherwise, where would the bats stand? Something was
Right.
removed. Then the edge, perhaps it was made from another material. Maybe it was made from copper or something else, but I didn't see any green color as copper oxide. Maybe another type of stone that added a different or another corbel to the rest of the design.
Right.
Functionality It's something very important to be researching. Anything that is explained as symbolic,
Right.
in my opinion, it should be reinvestigated.
I totally agree.
The dynastic Egyptians or the ancient Egyptians at any era are like you and me. Why would you take this kind of challenge for something symbolic? Because you could have created much more simple structure for a symbolic tool. And as we said, the conclusion that it was a symbolic tomb because they found the Book of the Dead carved, and it's incomplete actually. Like
Right.
some parts are only drawings
Right.
with no, without carving them. In order to carve them, of course, they used to draw it on the wall first.
Right.
So, and these drawings and the carvings were added during the time of Merenptah, 19th dynasty. And Merenptah was so much like his father, Ramses II. He used to inherit or usurp older structures and older statues and claim it to himself. And this is known to mainstream Egyptologists.
I hope the water level is this low in October.
I believe it will remain like that because it didn't get low just on its own.
They've been pumping it out.
Yeah, and they do all the way like 24/7. It's happening. This didn't happen here on the Giza Plateau. They have this project since 2012. They're pumping out the water and the more is coming in.
Right.
This is trash from the new kingdom.
Yeah, I know, right? It would have been interesting to have a look at the actual floor, but
Yeah.
and I dropped my sunglasses in that, by the way.
Mhm.
Good times.
Look at that glyph over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, anybody who wants to, who is interested in the Book of the Gates or Book of the Hours coming out to the day, they kind of look at the mainstream books to understand at least the explanation of researchers like Wallace Budge and others.
Right.
Yeah.
R.A. Schwaller-DeLubitsch. That guy's great.
Budge is good as well.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming amount of characters. Like most Egyptologists, they never memorize it all when they go to the Valley of the Kings or, you know, truly overwhelming. Like I read the book, I don't know how many times now, and it's just really so much details and every character has a meaning and but they are all coming from ancient Egyptian, from old kingdom text. The angles of the granite pillars, you know,
Yeah.
these sharp angles are more challenging than anybody can think. So who do we agree with? Those who say that this is a new kingdom structure because of the inscriptions, or those who say this is an old kingdom structure because it's so identical to the Valley Temple? It's good that some of them noticed that the inscriptions can, in this case, cannot be used to date and relate this megalithic structure.
Right.
And it's a very, very common case if they just look with more depth. The thing is, the mainstream books about machining and extracting stones specifically, They say that the dynastic Egyptians during the Old Kingdom time didn't have the capability to extract granite stone and other hard rocks like quartzite out of the bedrock itself, and they depended only on loose or falling pieces. While here we have very high quality of stone. Don't laugh.
These were just laying around, Yusuf. Clearly, this stuff was
Yeah,
just laying
it's
around. It was
like
ancient
massive
ancient Lego.
slabs, to straighten and flatten a surface. That's very challenging. Not to mention a piece like this lintel here, that
Right.
it has two edges coming down. So like these pieces were designed, maybe each one, or at least the important ones, like the ones we see on the gates and the ones in the corners. Everything is designed to, they know the size and where it's going to fit exactly, and the next, and the next, you know. And of course, the largest pieces usually are the ones on the ceiling and the ones that is used for the pillars.
All of this is so, feels it's got that Peruvian
Very similar, yeah.
interlocking style. Like, yeah, you're
Yeah,
pointing it out right there. It looks just like the Coricancha
it's
walls.
exactly. It's like the closest one that I have seen to the structure we have seen in South America is that little peak that is going into the other block and this kind of work. And of course, I am not a believer of the idea of geopolymer at all.
Well, this is obviously brick that's been plastered over in modern times
Yeah.
for the top. But do they think it was that way, or they think it was sealed in bedrock or blocks? Probably.
Yeah, it was probably with the same design in the ancient times. But then it had to be covered by, of course, the Ministry of Antiquities.
Yeah, I don't think there's any footage of this anywhere else that I've seen, actually. It might be.
No filming here. What's the big deal?
I don't know. Yeah, because this you were pointing out, I think that's all patchwork, all stuff that's been done later, much later.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, probably these parts were added during the dynastic Egyptian time to the structures. They are not genuine like the one outside from granite and quartzite. It's
Right.
all the same sandstone and limestone with a layer of plaster and inscriptions. This is the famous scene of Nu, the primordial water. And you can see the scarab holding the disk of the sun merging. And these are how the shapes look, the shape of the gates look like,
Right.
with the standing serpent. So this is part of from the Book of the Gates.
Yes.
So most of these scenes you can find, of course, in the Valley of the Kings.
Right. Yeah, they're either on the walls or on sarcophagi or.
Yeah. Yeah, still they have lots of mysteries anyway. Because even if they were popular in the New Kingdom time, They were not invented in the New Kingdom time. They go back. There are the pyramid text, which has very similar ideas about ascending and crossing the gates. But the priest of Ammon took these and put Ammon as the one, or Ammon
in
Ra as the one,
in the gate.
instead of the, yeah. So they took the older stories and they wrote their own out of it. And even that it was written in the, or found inscribed in some of the walls in the Old Kingdom, still that means that it is, I don't like to call it mythology, but like this understanding of the ancient Egyptians
Right.
used to be there before it was inscribed. Like the so-called pyramid text itself.
Right.
It's known that it was what they call rituals. And then they started only to read inside the pyramids on the fifth dynasty.
Right. That's what they say. Why there aren't any in the Great Pyramids is because they were sung or performed rather than written.
Yes. Yeah, but I talked with the hieroglyphic masters and everything. It's like, yeah, you're not going to put it, of course, maybe because it was rituals, but there is no even a name carved on the box.
Right.
And Cheops or Khafren or Menkauri. There
Right.
is no uh, like false door design or anything that looks like the old kingdom tombs that we find. And some of the old kingdom tombs are for royalty from the fourth dynasty, like the famous Meres Ankh. And the famous Meres Ankh is supposed to be the wife of King Khafra. And the famous tomb of Khufu Kha'if, supposedly the son of King Cheops. And they are very basic dynastic Egyptian tombs with all the offering scenes and all the
Right.
uh, titles, scenes on the walls, false doors, formulas to Osiris and Anubis, and very, very basic. So why we don't have any of them inside? Like in the first dynasty, they already existed during the time of Khufu and Khafra and Menkaura. There was already all the scenes and depictions that you find in the Old Kingdom tombs already existed, the daily life scenes. And
Now, is it like the Mortuary Temple for the Bent Pyramid, Snefru's temple down that has writings in it, right?
yes, the Valley Temple of the Bent Pyramid.
The
You're
Valley
right.
Temple. Is it possible to walk around in that, or is that closed?
No, it's possible, but there is hardly anything left because I believe they moved the blocks with the inscriptions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
which
do they
was
believe
discovered by Ahmad Fakhri.
do they
Now,
believe
why would
those to be original, or do they believe those to have come later?
they are original to their time? There are many things that I will be sharing also in the video that I'm making about the Bent Pyramid now, and but I can tell you. Um, First, why is there inscriptions in the very temple of Senefru, supposedly the father of all the kings who built their pyramids in the Giza, and then we don't have the inscriptions inside the temples of the other kings
Right.
who supposedly came afterwards. And there is another mystery that was found inside the Bent Pyramid, which is, of course, the logs of wood from Lebanon,
Right.
which was beneath small blocks of limestone.
Yeah, that entire chamber seems very strange because the construction is just so different to the rest of the pyramid.
When actually the lower chamber was the same. The first chamber was the corbel ceiling, the one that has the steps that takes us up.
The one,
Used to have
yeah,
the first one, the first major one, used to have the same logs of wood and the limestone blocks, which is mentioned to be like some confusing to Ahmad Fakhri, for example, who doesn't understand why would they have something like this in the pyramid. It's too early to say, but yes, maybe it was also inherited and reconstructed in the inside to serve the new purpose that it was going to be made for or used for. What does the word Senefer mean in hieroglyphs?
well, you would know better than me, but I was told twice harmonic, something like that. Double harmonic.
It depends. If you believe the word Nefer means harmony or frequency or vibration, or it can mean beautiful.
Beauty, yeah.
You know, what is beauty? Beauty is harmony and things like that. So, yeah, so Nefer is to make it beautiful or to make it harmonious. And also, it has other meanings like um, actually, it means to renew or restore the gateway or the portal has the symbol of the star in it, which is known as Sibat. Why would they put a star in it?
Right. When we were at Dendera, I mean, there's just
Yeah,
a whole bunch of gateways with varying amounts of stars either inside them or around them, above them.
yeah, different gates and with different names and different constellations.
Right. He was a beetle, but he kind of looked a little bit like a scarab.
There are two different types. Is that no? Having too
Yeah.
much fun.
It's Mo having a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, so all this part is probably constructed during the New Kingdom time.
Yeah. This is clearly the Eye of Sauron right here. I don't know if you saw Lord of the Rings. I take it that's the sun disk. Is that, are we looking at the sun disk there?
Yeah, this is the sun disk in the secret ship that will take him from one gate to the next.
With the serpent around it.
So we can feel like we are in one adventure.
Right. I actually wish I'd walked through this little bit at the end of the tunnel right here.
Mm.
Because this would have been the other room with the same A-frame roof as the other chamber. Yeah, you can see how far that stone goes there.
Yeah. And there are two locations for quartzite. The famous one is here in Cairo, and the other one is also in Aswan.
There's a piece of the A-frame roof still on the right there at the back. You can still see it.
Yes, exactly.
You see how they cut it into that block too, so the block is still flat, but it has that A-frame curve. Angle, rather.
Who knows? Maybe the dynastic Egyptians are the one who took that ceiling and built that other one with it. Because most cases when they recycle, they don't go far with the stone. They recycle it
Right.
most of the time in the same location.
So I did end up going into all of the little side chambers. They're all pretty much identical.
Yeah, I cannot understand also what could be the function of a small chamber like that.
Unless it's acoustic, maybe.
Maybe acoustic, or maybe it used to be open and then was constructed later. Who knows? I could see that the ceiling of these chambers, the smaller one,
Right.
was made from a very soft type of sandstone,
Right.
not like the quartzite here. Was it added later? I haven't seen this stone in the pyramids combination. That's why I have that question. Eddie,
And I'm so glad I didn't fall into this stuff.
a structure like this deserves more research for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be the guy with the snorkel, but I'd want to know what he found.
Snorkeling in this dirty water, you will hardly see anything.
These are about 12 feet high, I reckon. And they've all got, what look like maybe tube drill door hinges as well. But the shape of that, all of those stones that make the doorway, they're all shaped like that.
The outside gate is something, and the inside of the chamber is something else.
Yeah, so that yellower stone there is the sandstone, you think?
Yeah, it was too soft. I could feel like just with your finger,
Yeah.
you could scratch it. So it made me question. Perhaps these were originally open, not closed.
And my house in Greece is made of sandstone, and the wasps dig nests in it. It's that soft.
Yes, it's similar to that, exactly.
Yeah, that's the sandstone.
You see how lighter color it is?
It really had a nice finish on it originally. Nice edge
If
on it.
it's that soft.
And the quarry marks there on that block.
Yeah. Well, as we said, the ancient Egyptians used to have uh, the understanding of restoring. And
Right.
it is where the word sniffer come from. It means restoration. So snifferu would be like
The,
restorations.
the restoration pyramids.
This is what it means in hieroglyphic.
Wow.
Or to make beautiful. Here beautiful because of course the sign nefer was
It shows you
translated to beautiful,
it
but it
shows
could
you
be, yeah,
it shows you how open like the translations really are. I mean, you can pick one that you like the best, but there's a whole bunch of valid interpretations.
yes. And this is the difference in the cultural mindset in translating. Yeah. See the
No,
difference between this part and the other one? So obvious.
yeah,
Or it was used for a different purpose that we don't know about.
right. Yeah, I was curious if what the properties of sandstone were as
The
far as
silicified sandstone has lots of quartz in it and has big amount of silica as well. And they have multiple functions, especially with earth grids and
right.
electromagnetic induction. Yeah, the hinges for the doors.
Yeah.
Look
Just
at
looking
that.
here, not saying anything.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly. What do we need to say? People just look at this and wow. That's all you have to see when you look at something like that. The size of the block is fairly like the same. Did you ever see a guy after they do the concrete on the ceiling? The guy suffers just to add that other layer and smooth it, and they
Right.
never get it. They never can manage to make it all perfectly straight like that. This
It's just
might be little bit more over 50 tons. That's one right,
yeah.
right there in the ceiling. Yeah, all that was cased just like that. Huge structure.
Yeah.
The bases underneath the pillars are also giant blocks of granite stone.
I was just about to ask you if it looks like they're kind of set into it a little bit.
Not on the surface.
Yeah, the ones in the center there looked a little bit like they might be set in. Like, I don't know.
No, I think it's on the
I think it's on the
it's on the
surface.
surface of yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say it's sunk in, otherwise you know who. Mr. Adrian Nash will come and tell you, oh, this is evidence that the stone was softened. He should study geology. The only example with an extension is this pillar. Like, it's not a single solid piece.
Right.
The rest of them is all single solid pieces. Just look at this one over there. To flatten these surfaces so they can fit perfectly on top of each other like that. This is, of course, that line here on the left side
Yeah.
is from those who were trying to recycle
Right.
the granite from
It's
the
quarry
start.
marks.
Mm.
I was taking a good picture for Drew there. This was a good trip.
Yeah. It's good that you filmed all this.
I'm glad I got that step pyramid footage too, because it's all different down there now.
It's all different, of course. Everything is cemented over and they made these corridors. Yeah, and I asked about the hose. It's not for injecting or electricity.
Oh yeah, what's it for?
It's for the bedrock is filled like with humidity, with
Right.
like water in it. So if they didn't do that, the stone can expand behind the wall and cause the walls to crack under the pressure. So they put these holes. So if the wall want to release some of its liquid, it will come through the hole, through the holes.
Interesting. Yeah, this one at the end is really damaged. They've rebuilt it at some point with bricks.
Yeah. Inheritors do that all the time.
Yeah.
If they're not going to use it as a quarry, then they reconstruct it and use it as tourist attraction.
Yeah. Modern Inca work.
Yeah.
That little block insert there. This had some holes in the stone here. I'm going to show it, I think, in a second, maybe. Hello. There we go.
Yeah. These are the ones that can exist naturally in the stone. The one that they will usually empty out and replace a patch. Not this one, of course. Even the floor is constructed from megalithic blocks. Positively, there will be more structures in the same level, but they need to remove these mountains from around it.
Right.
A structure like that wouldn't just exist in the middle of nowhere all by itself. They should really use some GPR technology to have a reading from what's going under the bedrock or under the sand.
I know a pretty famous Egyptologist who doesn't believe in radar. But I agree with you. I very much agree with you.
You still want to use a brush?
Well, this is why I asked you at the beginning if you thought Seti even knew about this, because this would so easily fill in with sand. I mean, that wouldn't take long to fill in at all. You know, if there's a possibility
No.
that that's more like, 20 or 30,000 years old, who knows?
Who knows? It is without a doubt older than the inscriptions of Meren Pitah.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
for
if
sure.
if we say it's that comparable to the Sphinx Valley Temple,
Mm.
that's older than we think it is. And Robert Schoch, he said he was pretty comfortable. I saw an interview with him about a year, 2 years ago, where he was saying he was comfortable with the Sphinx being about 30,000 years old.
Mm.
So if those things could be created around the same time, push things back a little bit.
That's not a little bit. 30,000 years is 10 times the timeline we are talking about in the mainstream Egyptology.
Isn't it?
Instead of 3,200 BC,
How old did your father say the Sphinx was?
he also said older. He believed it could go for 54,000 years.
54,000 years.
Yeah, 2 great years, he believed. We do have sites here in Egypt from the Paleolithic era that
Right.
goes back to 300,000 years with artifacts that was made by humans.
Right.
But stone, like the stone knives and stuff like that,
Right.
nothing advanced. At least we know that we have them from 300,000 years creating working with stone. We have stone knives that is made from obsidian.
Right.
And we know obsidian doesn't exist here in Egypt.
Right.
So it had to be brought from abroad. We have pre-dynastic artifacts that is made from lapis lazuli and gold
Gold.
mixed
Yeah.
together. Yeah. Someone had to travel to Afghanistan to bring this lapis lazuli, and someone had to know mining gold to create the gold.
Right.
And
So if
this
you
is our
guys,
upcoming tour.
yeah, if you guys want to come with us and see it better than I can film it in person, which is a little bit better than 4K, come with us in October.
Actually, we have like this video made for you so we can share with you as much as we can. But of course, it will never be like seeing it for real, feeling
Exactly.
it for real, and understanding the challenge of implementation in the environment that surrounds the structure. It totally gives it another meaning.
All right. Thanks for watching. Join us in the step pyramid video and like and subscribe and all that stuff.